Greetings from Castle Goring, from Mickey and from me. I'm sure that you will realise that I'm rather extraordinarily rigged up this afternoon. There's a reason for it. I have just come from Goodwood races. I suspect that those of you who are not British and avid turfites will have no idea what Goodwood races actually means. Well, Goodwood races are a meet. It's very smart. It's a more casual Royal Ascot, except it's not royal. It's at the Duke of Richmond and Gordon's estate, which is just fortunately a few miles from Castle Goring. And so I have been there having a rather good time, it has to be said. So I have come back here to do this video so that, so I've had no time to change, and I'm in my, what I call my Carmen Miranda look. So if I may, I will plunge right in. The first question is from Lizzie Atkin. Dear Lady C, love your videos. Should we read anything into the fact that Lili Mountbatten-Windsor has been added to the line of succession? Are the royal family playing the witch on the broomstick and H at their own game? Much love and 3 kisses. Yes, I have to tell you, there's an awful lot going on behind the scenes, as I have tried to point out to you in videos, and indicating that there's an awful lot going on behind the scenes that I could not speak about. Yes, one could actually say that yes, the witch on the broomstick and her husband are I wouldn't have actually put it as being played at their own game, so much as, you know, this is a very sad and tragic situation. But it also has entertainment value. And everybody, everywhere that I go, is speaking about it. And you know, there are concerns that this situation will impact adversely upon the monarchy, but I will get to that in a little while. So yes, the fact that Lili was kept out of the line of succession for the length of time that she was, I suppose you could say it was a shot across the bow to Harry and to Meghan, to say to them, you know, you're not the only one who has cards in your hands. We have cards as well. And I understand that Harry and Meghan were really upset, and she especially was extremely frustrated that her daughter had not been put in the line of succession with the immediacy that she required, and that there was all sorts of speculation. Don't think this was an accident. It wasn't an accident. It was what we can call a shot across the bow. Angela White says, I enjoy your wisdom. I, as a mother, have my own H&M I'm dealing with. It completely parallels the royal family. The depth of pain that Prince Charles, brother Prince William, and Her Majesty the Queen must be feeling is immense. The joy the Black Widow spider feels is all-empowering and the power she feels is immense. I am awaiting the fall, as I am sure the royal family is. My dear, you are awaiting it. I've got news for you. A goodly proportion of the English nation is awaiting it. A goodly proportion of the Scottish nation and the Welsh and the Northern Irish are awaiting it. Not to mention people all over the Commonwealth and indeed in the United States of America. Schadenfreude, I think is what it's called. Schadenfreude. Let's wait and see if it happens and when it happens, because people who function at this intensity of attention seeking usually self-destruct. Louis Robinson says, perceptive episode, Lady C, as Satan, also known as Meghan and Harry, says in Paradise Lost, quote unquote, it is better to rule in hell than serve in heaven. I actually know that quote. I studied Paradise Lost in school, and I remember it very well. And yes, there is a category of person that would sooner rule in hell than serve in heaven. And I think you have alighted upon the fact that this is a couple sooner rule in hell than serve in heaven. After all, they had the choice. It has to be said in fairness to Harry, had he married anyone else, he would have served reasonably happily. He always had the propensity to, be the rather envious, covetous, acting up second son. There was always the propensity, and sometimes, but I think he'd have kept it under a lid, so to speak. But as we have established before, Meghan has liberated Harry. She has liberated him from all the checks and balances that people who know him well used to regard as the decencies. She has liberated him so that his id, in Freudian terms, rules, and his superego really has been put on ice. Marianne Burns says, what does Harry have on the Queen that she allows Harry to blackmail her? Actually, Marianne Burns, this is a theme that several people have been addressing in one way, shape or form or the other. I do not think, in fairness, that Harry is blackmailing the Queen. Or to put it another way, he has nothing with which to blackmail the Queen, except her duty to the monarchy and her fear that if Harry and Meghan remain unchecked loose cannons, continuing to have gone rogue, that they will damage the monarchy, because people will think, where there's smoke, there's fire. The fact that Harry and Meghan's interpretation of events struggles to accord with everybody else's interpretation of events doesn't mean that there is not a percentage out there that won't think where there's smoke, there's fire. And the British monarchy is about unifying all the nation, considering all the varying, sometimes conflicting opinions, and trying to be a representative, if not of all of them, to allow them space to flourish or at least be acknowledged or recognized. So you see, it's actually quite a nuanced situation. I don't think that Harry has anything except the power of fear on his side. In fact, I know he has nothing. I mean, of course, the royal family is like all families. I've never met any family ever, and I have travelled extensively all over the world and lived in several different countries. I have never met any family that felt that it could afford to have a treacherous traitor within the family spreading rumours, giving alternative views, undermining the integrity of the family at the same time that this individual would be undermining the reputation of the family. Nobody wants to be in that position, whether you are a queen or a dustman. Dyson Babe says, still the Harkles are trending, not a safe position to claim. You watch. We Americans look for character and character flaws. We are not loyal to power or position. We have a tradition of rebelliousness and rebellion. We eat our own publicly. Big mistake, Harry. You were safer in Great Britain. Well spoken. Well spoken. Harry and Meghan are riding for a fall. It just is a matter of time. How long is it going to take before Fatty Arbuckle is in big trouble? To those of you who don't know who Fatty Arbuckle was, he was a huge star between the wars. And he had a scandal. And he was persona non grata. You know, if you are constantly in the public eye, as Harry and Meghan seek to be, you have to come up with new narratives and new adventures and new incidents on a daily basis. Not only are you in danger of overexposing yourself and inducing, if not boredom, at least ennui, and actually sometimes rage, because people get fed up with the bombardment, and more and more people will get fed up with the bombardment. It's just that human beings have a ghoulish fascination for ghoulish people, ghoulish situations. And this is a truly bizarre situation. It's actually almost unprecedented. If you regard it as a dual act, it is unprecedented. But if you regard it as an updated version of Diana mischievously creating havoc for the rest of the family, there is a precedent. It never ends well. Patricia says, as an American, I can see that they are not succeeding with their idea of American royalty. Everyday Americans are offended by the notion of hierarchy based on birth. Do not believe what the media outlets push. Harper's Bazaar, Vanity Fair, and People magazine readers who consider themselves a cut above do not represent the base. Americans generally either don't know or care who they are, and if they do know, they are repulsed by their behaviour. Patricia, you have hit upon a very interesting point, and it is fundamental to what is going on. Harry and Meghan don't care about the silent majority. Harry and Meghan don't care about people who don't like them in Nebraska, who think that their behaviour is appalling. Harry and Meghan and their PR people only care about the facade, the perception of elitism. They are rank elitists who are playing to a very tiny percentage, not only in the United States of America, but within the American media. But Harper's Bazaar, Vanity Fair, People magazine, and their ilk have a firm foothold in the market and a very rich foothold in the market. Harry and Meghan are using fame and status to make money. And as long as that cyclical, circular, come and go movement continues, they will continue. And as long as People magazine, Harper's Bazaar, Vanity Fair are interested in Harry and Meghan, and as long as they push them, and remember, they are pushing them, there is no groundswell of interest from the ground upwards. Harry and Meghan have been parachuted in and continue to be parachuted in by these magazines, PR companies that feed them stories. It is a symbiotic relationship. It is unique in, if not the world, certainly in that part of the world. We do not have the same situation in Britain. We have no interest in reading about celebrities when we suspect that it's a load of rubbish. But there is a segment of the American population that, because it's not a monarchy, it loves royalty. And if they get reasonably attractive and somewhat youthful, not that Harry and Meghan are young, she's 40 and he is in his late 30s, but they're young enough. They are of childbearing age. Menopause is what reduces the catholicity of appeal, the sex appeal, so that a beautiful woman in her 50s, 60s, or 70s does not have the appeal of a woman in her 20s, 30s, or 40s. No matter how beautiful she is, no matter how glamorous she is, no matter how young she looks, people, their innate biological clock, I suppose you'd call it, kicks in. And they think, oh, not of childbearing age, not sexy. They may think attractive, but what makes for stardom is a combination of glamour, youthfulness, good presentation, good position, and youthfulness. So, to wrap it up, I hear what you're saying, I agree with you, but I also have to point out Harry and Meghan don't care about that part of American society. They only care about the part that is going to be the mirror that shines back upon them very brightly, the reflection that they require it to do. SZM says, hello, Lady C. Do you not think that the mischievous ones are the press? They seem to make up stories every day and we believe them and get upset. Then it turns out not to be true. I do think that the press have to be blamed as much as Harry and Meghan. Sometimes I feel so angry with the press that I start to side with the Sussexes, until I remember that the Sussexes are enjoying the ride. It is us that are being strung up. You are brilliant. You have got it in one. But again, it's a symbiotic relationship. Harry and Meghan and their PR people fly kites on a daily basis. They leak X to Y and P to Q. And they keep a variety of balls in the air to keep up the interest in them as a couple. Of course, it suits the press. It suits the American press, and by the American press, I'm not referring to the local newspapers. I'm not referring to the New York Times or the Los Angeles whatever or the Washington Post. I'm referring to the glossy magazines, Harper's and Bazaar. Harper's and Queen is English. Harper's Bazaar, People, Vanity Fair. They are hungry for stories about celebrities. And it becomes a circular thing. The more they write about people is the more they regard those people as being of interest to their readership. With a degree of merit, it has to be said. Also, in Britain, it suits the press to not exactly faithfully follow the Harry and Meghan party line, but it suits the press. And not only in England, but in Australia, for instance, because Harry and Meghan are orifices that give endlessly. They spew forth with a constancy that would make a dam that has a leak spewing forth water seem a fairly good analogy. And you know, to an extent, Harry and Meghan have become in the media entertaining characters insofar as the professionals in the media are concerned. Harry and Meghan are not serious figures to be taken seriously. They are joke figures to be written about, and because all these publications have space to fill, Harry and Meghan, in their very act of constantly putting out stories, give these publications stories to fill their newspapers or their magazines. The fact that it has gone on too much and that it has become distasteful in a funny sort of way doesn't bother the media, because all that they care about is covering what is of interest to their readership. So the press does have a part to play, but you can well understand why they have a part to play. They're being given a gift. They would really be rather irresponsible to not pick up the gift and utilize it to their own advantage. Jamie, lovely day vegan. Oh, what a name, I love it. Hello, Lady C. I heard on the TV news a week or two ago that Harry had reportedly told close friends of his that he was missing the army. What do you make of this? Could this mean that he is fed up with Megsy baby? Yeah, he has told people that he misses the army. Harry is now caught up in a life of absolute chaos, unpredictability, and unstructured structure, if that makes sense to you. But it is very chaotic. The army is very unchaotic. The army is very orderly. There is a predictability, even though there is also an unpredictable element. But what has happened with Harry since he's got married is that the emphasis has flipped. There is very little structure in his life with Meghan, and he flourished in the army with the structure, because disturbed, chaotic personalities like Harry need structure. They need something to take them out of themselves and perform. And he was very good at performing and fulfilling his orders, really, because he was very minor in rank and was ordered to do things and did them. Well, of course, he's fulfilling Meghan's agenda. He's fulfilling Meghan's orders. He even feels that he is fulfilling his own orders, when, of course, They're not his orders. So to an extent, there are parallels, but the emphasis is entirely different, because the slight unpredictability in the army is when you are sent on a mission and you don't quite know what's going to happen. But the rest of the time, everything is orderly. And indeed, Harry, who was actually never a helicopter pilot, never. So don't for a second believe he was. He was a gunner. He was not a helicopter pilot. William was a helicopter pilot. Harry, never. Harry has only ever been a mere gunner. But he would be given tasks to do and would execute them. So he enjoyed the structure. But can you imagine being in California and every single day you're plotting and scheming and planning and how are we going to make some more money? What are we going to do? How are we going to spin this so that it looks as if we're bigger successes than we are? Not very structured. Very exciting and unpredictable, but not very structured. So I can well believe the people who have said that he misses the army. He misses the structure of the army. He misses the ordinariness of the army. Because the irony of his lifestyle with Meghan is that at the very moment that she postulates that they are humanitarians in touch with ordinary people. Yes, they use ordinary people, but their life has become far more elitist and far more restrictive than it ever was when he was in the army or when he was a working royal or just a member of the royal family. The royal family on a daily basis comes across a lot of ordinary people that keeps their feet firmly on the ground. Meghan has no interest in ordinary people and never did. She has spent her whole life trying to flee from ordinariness and make herself appear to be special. And she has taken him along for that ride. Is it any surprise that he misses the army? Not to me. Kate Olivia Ireland says, as an American, I must say Meghan and Harry have a rude awakening ahead of them. First, Americans don't do kings and queens. We do love and respect Queen Elizabeth II. We always have and always will. We don't take kindly to senior abuse. We, most of us that is, believe that the 10 Commandments are holy and need to be obeyed. We don't take kindly to people who break and dishonour them. I also believe Harry and Meghan are in for big time karma. Finally, I must say Harry and Meghan are middle-aged people, not children. No one owes them anything in big block capitals, and they need to be held accountable. Thank you for your time. I read this out because this is a representative of what many people have said in various ways. And I think it is important that we be aware of what people genuinely think and genuinely feel about this situation and about the conduct of this couple. Rosaline Nakesa says, Lady C, why does it sound all you people in the UK are scared of Harry's upcoming book? What are you fearing if there is no wrong the royal family or indeed the British people have committed? Well, this, my dear, goes to the heart of the matter. And I started with it, and I'm going to continue what I said in the very beginning. All families have embarrassing moments that they do not wish anybody else to know about. Simple things. They also have bad moods. You know, people let their guard down within their family circle, and they do not monitor what they say to the extent that they do when they expect people to repeat what they are saying and doing. Also, people in family situations, if you have a row with somebody, you might say something you don't mean, or you're a little bit tiddly and somebody is goading you and you make a crass and crude joke that really doesn't actually represent the way you truly feel, but it's a bagatelle that you have indulged in, possibly tastelessly, possibly stupidly, for that moment. Do you really want that to be broadcast? I mean, think about it. So that's really, again, it comes back to what I said earlier. People are scared not about the fact that Harry would be revealing great truths, but that he will be either revealing untruths or misrepresentations that actually amount to untruths. I hope I made myself clear. Next question. Flying the Nest says, adding the grandchildren to the line of succession, as would happen normally, seems wise to me. The next item is not really a question, it is a comment, and I'm reading it out because I think it is important to convey what people are actually truly thinking. It keeps our feet on the ground, and it also encourages us to not be discouraged. Flying the Nest says, adding the grandchildren to the line of succession, as would happen normally, seems wise to me. It's always best to ignore the narcissist types. They thrive on attention, even more on the drama of negative attention! Also, the grandkids are not at fault. By revoking their succession, it would give the Harkles more ammunition for attention and drama. By letting it go, it gives them enough rope to hang themselves with. That's a very interesting observation. The fact is, by adding Lili to the line of succession, the powers that be have not only let Harry and Meghan know that just in the act of withholding something, they can cause problems for them, but by endowing, that they are providing an incentive for them to behave well. It's the whole situation is so layered and so contradictory in some respects and so confused in some respects that it is really difficult to put all of it into words in a simple, straightforward way. But I agree that it is a wise move to include Lili, because Lili would have had to have been included once Harry and Meghan furnished sufficient proof for the birth certificate to be taken as it appears on the face of it to mean. Now, let's imagine a scenario, which I'm not saying exists, but let's imagine a scenario in which down the line it should emerge that there were irregularities in Lili's birth certificate, and that there were irregularities that were brought to the attention of the authorities that questioned the right of Lili and or Archie to be in the line of succession. You know, both Lili and Archie have birth certificates, and a birth certificate is a legal document that is meant to carry a great deal of weight. Now, I know what I'm talking about because my birth certificate had to be amended, and it's no easy job to amend a birth certificate. Birth certificates are only amended when genuine errors, at least in England, and I don't know about Scotland because Scottish law is different, but in England and Wales, birth certificates are only amended, as indeed in Jamaica, when there has been a genuine error made on the original birth certificate. What that means is that if later on down the line, facts should emerge that either birth certificate contained further inaccuracies, because let's not forget, Archie's birth certificate has already been amended once, but both his birth certificate and Lili's birth certificate state clearly that, well, let me rephrase that actually. Archie's birth certificate clearly states that Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex gave birth to him. And Lili's birth certificate states clearly that Rachel Meghan Markle gave birth to her. The royal family has no choice in the absence of incontrovertible proof that this was not the case, to deprive either of those children of their rights of succession. Do you see the minefield that this is? But it's not only a minefield that the royal family has to deal with. It is a minefield that Meghan and Harry have to cross from now till their death. I don't want to say more than that. Becky Bowman says, Lady C, our news over here in the States says Harry will be coming to London on a work trip for BetterUp. So here comes your prince. Then she has a symbol of a prince. Of England, of course. You never know what to believe in the news anymore. Well, I would imagine that what you're trying to ask me is it farcical that a prince of the United Kingdom would leave the United Kingdom and all the security and the protection and the funding to the tune of millions of pounds per annum to go to America to hawk his wares and then come back to his native land hawking his wares like some snake oil merchant in Elmagantry. To those of you who don't know, Elmagantry was a very famous movie in, I think, about 1960. Elmagantry was a preacher who basically sold snake oil, if I remember correctly. The whole thing is inelegant in the extreme. And I make no pretense about it. I think the whole situation is regrettable. But the irony is, had Harry and Meghan gone about things differently, they could have paved the way for junior royals, because they're not senior royals, they are junior royals, despite their pretensions to the contrary. And they are going to become ever more junior with the passage of time. They could have paved the way, and this was one of the hopes at the palace when Harry and Meghan originally left, that maybe, fingers crossed, with a bit of luck, even though nobody thought this was really going to happen, they hoped against hope that it would, that Harry and Meghan would come up with a new formula that would allow other junior members of the royal family to effectively break ranks and remain members of the royal family, non-working members of the royal family, who would be respected and who would uphold the dignity of the royal family and the British nation. Well, of course, it's not happened. So are we going to have Harry coming here to sell us rubbish under the guise of BetterUp? You know, I'm old enough to remember when I was young, there were all sorts of psychological programs that people would join. I remember there was one called EST, that all sorts of friends of mine joined, and they were very excited, and EST, release your potential in 3 or 6 or 9 hours or 2 weekends. I don't remember what. I went with a friend who said, oh, you've got to come, da-da-da, it's fabulous. I went. I thought, ye gods, snake oil, snake oil. Well, I'm sure these things have limited merit, but it's really only limited. You know, snake oil is not something you give to somebody when they need chemotherapy. Snake oil is something you give to people when they don't need chemotherapy. I just make that distinction. Leah Malone says, maybe she put Lili in the line of succession so that Megs can't add that to Harry's book. I think she means that Meghan can't, and I would imagine she means the Queen, so that Meghan can't complain that Lili has been excluded from the line of succession. Then, when Prince Charles becomes king, he can take away their titles. I don't know. Well, my dear, it's very interesting that you speculate the way you're doing, because you could actually be a lot nearer to the heart of the matter than you realize. But I doubt very much that Lilibet Diana Mountbatten-Windsor, Miss Lilibet Diana Mountbatten-Windsor, and Mr. Archie Harrison Mountbatten-Windsor Bunker are ever going to be made Prince and Princess or allowed to use the titles. I've covered this before. I think they're going to go the way of, if not Prince Alistair of Connaught, I think they're certainly going to go the way of Princess Maud of Fife. So, Vicky Nay says, Meghan lives to be difficult. Never were truer words said. It is so very confusing that Meghan lacks privacy enough that she published the intimate details of her miscarriage in the New York Times. Not to mention, my dear, her bowel movements in funding freedom and finding freebies. And not only the bowel movements, but where they took place, and how admirably Harry viewed this act of nature. Details of her miscarriage in the New York Times, to pick up back where I left off, but cannot comply with the tradition and post birth details and a photo of her child. Where is the logic in that? I'll tell you where the logic is, actually. The logic is in the fact that Meghan Markle is a sort of personality who will always do what she's not supposed to and will never do what she's supposed to. She is awkward and she is difficult and she is obstinate and she is troublesome. My mother was like that. She just couldn't oblige. She had to always be in opposition to everybody and everything, which is, and people like that, I have to tell you, as they get older, they get worse. Because, I mean, my mother in her 40s, 50s and 60s was infinitely worse than she was in her 20s and 30s. They develop a taste for opposition. They develop a taste for the power that comes with opposition. I used to say, Mummy loves the raw exercise of power. And so does Meghan. It's obvious to me. She loves wielding power. She, as somebody earlier in this video made the point, she gets off on it. She thrills to the wielding of power. She thrills to the havoc she creates. She thrills to always being the dominant party in everything. That is the nature of the beast. And that is what we are dealing with and will continue to deal with until maybe she will implode. I mean, there are parallels, lots of parallels between Meghan and Evita Peron. And Evita Peron imploded. She died of cancer, age 33. Her body couldn't take the constant high octane performance and the constant frenzy. She burnt herself out. Many Argentinians regretted it, and many also welcomed it. Now, I'm not saying that Meghan is going to go the way of Evita, but we need to recognise that when people are that oppositional and that committed to fame and fortune and to the frenzy and the havoc and the chaos and the constant assertiveness that they create without cease, their body also rebels. And people like that usually override their body. So that's possibly one denouement. There are others, including sailing off on a billionaire's boat. Shades of Jackie. But in Jackie's situation, it was different because Jackie was a widow. And Jackie definitely had something to fear because her husband was killed in her presence. And she was worried that her children would ultimately be assassinated. And she also did not want to be the American demigoddess and Saint Jackie to all the Americans. She wanted out of the very thing that Meghan wants into, which is really rather interesting. But who knows what the outcome is going to be? I certainly don't. But I would say there is a logic in her contradictory conduct, and her claims are contradictory. What's she going to say? I'm a fame-seeking, attention-seeking, as the Jamaicans would say, grabbinicious, junkie of fame, fortune, and there's no such thing as enough. And I have figurative greed. No matter how much I get, it's never going to be enough. What's she going to do? Say that? I don't think so. I think the only thing she can do is deny, deny, deny. Denialists usually have very good reasons for playing the game of denial. If they don't do it, they can't maintain the facade. And with the Meghans of this world, it's all about facade. It's all about appearance, backed up by status, attention, and money, all of which also go to feed the facade of superiority. And on that note, I will say thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been of some interest to you. If it has, please like, subscribe, share, press the notification bell, and keep the questions coming in, please, in the comments section.